Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to Worldline Analysis and hit the bell so you never miss our deep dive geopolitical breakdowns. While Donald Trump spent the week questioning NATO and threatening tariffs on United States allies, something far more important happened quietly on the sidelines of the G20 summit, a summit Trump boycotted. Mark Carney met with Norwegian Prime Minister Jonas Gahr Støre in Johannesburg. And although the official statements sounded routine, the meeting was anything but. This was Canada stepping into a growing defense line stretching from Norway to Finland to Sweden and across to Alaska, what analysts now call NATO's new northern flank. And that flank is being built because Trump consistently signals that he sees America's allies as liabilities, not partners. Translation: while Trump weakens the alliance, Carney is preparing an alternative security architecture, one that doesn't depend on American reliability. To understand why this meeting matters, we need to look at what has been happening in the Arctic over the last 3 years. While Trump was undermining NATO, Russia and China were building what strategists call the Polar Partnership. In 2024, Russia and China conduct their first joint exercises in Russian Arctic waters. By late 2024, Putin and Xi sign an expanded Arctic cooperation deal. Early in 2025, their coast guards conduct joint patrols in the Bering Sea, directly testing American and Canadian response capability. At the same time, Trump repeatedly threatened to pull the United States out of NATO unless Europe dramatically increased defense spending. By 2024, many European governments no longer trusted Washington's security guarantees. That's when Sweden and Finland, after decades of strict neutrality, joined NATO in 2023 and 2024. Combined with Norway, this gave NATO control over 7 of the 8 Arctic nations, with only Russia outside the alliance. Moscow immediately called this hostile encirclement. What they didn't expect was how deeply the Nordic states would integrate. In April 2024, Nordic countries signed Vision 2030 committing to joint logistics, shared air defense, and integrated training across the Arctic. They are no longer waiting for American leadership. They are building their own. Their air capabilities will be formidable. Sweden, about 100 Gripen fighters. Norway and Finland, F-35s, with full fleets arriving by 2030. Advanced air defenses like Patriot, David's Sling, NASAMS, and more. This network will soon rival the United States' presence in Europe. But here's the key. They didn't build this because they wanted independence from North America. They built it because they cannot assume America will always show up. They built insurance against American unpredictability. So, this takes us back to Carney's meeting. The official readout, referenced defense supply chain cooperation, critical minerals, aerospace, and Arctic security. But what this really means is that Canada is preparing to integrate into Europe's defense industrial ecosystem. And honestly, that's something we haven't seen in about 75 years. Historically, Canada bought almost exclusively from American defense contractors. F-35s, American. Naval systems, American. Ground vehicles and ammunition, also American. But Trump's rhetoric, well, it forced a rethink. When the US president threatens tariffs on Canadian goods, questions alliance commitments, and even jokes about Canadian annexation, relying 100% on US military suppliers starts to look, pretty risky. Norway, Sweden, and Finland actually offer alternatives. Norway brings advanced naval systems, Arctic-capable vessels, the Naval Strike Missile, and NASAMS. Sweden? Gripen fighters, submarines, radar systems, and cold-weather ground defenses. Finland has Arctic vehicles, sub-zero communications, and equipment proven against Russia since 1939. These nations have spent decades reducing their dependence on Washington. And now, they're inviting Canada to do the same. Europe's defense revolution is, well, underway. While Trump alienated allies, the European Union launched a massive program, Rearm Europe, a $1.25 trillion initiative to rebuild Europe's defense manufacturing. In June 2025, Carney signed an agreement giving Canadian companies access to this entire program. What this means is, Canadian firms can now bid on defense contracts across all EU states, plus the Nordic partners. The shift is already pretty visible. Before Trump's presidency, about 90% of NATO procurement went to US contractors. By 2025, that number dropped to 67%, and it's still falling. European countries are now buying European weapons: Swedish fighters, Norwegian missiles, Finnish systems, German tanks. For Canadians who want our country to stand on its own feet rather than rely on US permission, this is a major turning point. Here's the big strategic picture. For 3/4 of a century, American geopolitical dominance relied on allies' dependence on US weapons, spare parts, and support. That era is ending. Carney and Stora weren't talking about symbolism. They were designing how Canada can integrate Nordic sensors, vehicles, and vessels into Arctic operations. Canadian shipyards can build Norwegian-designed ships. Canadian manufacturers can produce Swedish and Finnish defense components. And Canada brings a crucial advantage: geography. Nordic states cover the European Arctic, while Canada covers the North American Arctic. Together, they can create a transpolar security network monitoring Russian and Chinese activity from Alaska to Norway, with or without US participation. This is being built because, honestly, American leadership has become unpredictable. Now let's talk about the critics and the rebuttal. Trump supporters claim Canada should stick exclusively to the US relationship. They say that Nordic partnerships weaken North American cooperation. But the reality is simple. America pushed first. Trump questioned NATO, called allies freeloaders, threatened to abandon collective defense, weaponized tariffs, joked about annexing Canada, and now skips major diplomatic summits while Russia and China deepen Arctic collaboration. Relying entirely on American goodwill is no longer strategic. It's frankly naive. Canada isn't pushing the US away. Canada is preparing for a world where US commitments are conditional, variable, or simply absent. Looking ahead, the future of Canadian strategy is, well, shifting. For 75 years, Canada assumed the US would always be there in the Arctic. Trump's America made that assumption unsafe. Carney is not replacing the US partnership. He's building insurance against American volatility. This is what real sovereignty looks like in 2025: strategic diversification, resilience, and allies who stay committed regardless of US elections. The Arctic is opening. Russia and China are coordinating, and alliances are shifting fast. Carney's move signals the beginning of a new era, an era where Canada prepares for a future in which American leadership is no longer guaranteed. If you want to stay updated on how Canada navigates this new global landscape, where allies can't assume US support, subscribe to Worldline Analysis and hit the bell so you never miss our next breakdown.